Stepping off the plane, Prime Minister Mark Carney waves to the crowd below as he arrives in the Armenian capital of Yerevan. It's a visit marked by a shift in Canadian foreign policy, deepening ties with the European partners with less reliance on the United States. Carney is the first non-European leader to attend the European Political Community Summit. Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan greeting Carney shortly after his arrival, the two making their way inside for their meeting on bilateral relations.
This can be taken from our relationship.
It was the first of several meetings scheduled during the two-day summit. Carney and Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand then met with Polish PM Donald Tusk.
A big shift is happening. Europe has opened its doors to Canada in a way it never has before, inviting Mark Carney to a key meeting about serious global issues. This is a strong sign that Canada is rising in importance, but what comes next could change how the world works. For the first time since the European political community was established in the aftermath of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, a leader from outside Europe has been invited to attend. That leader is Mark Carney. That country is Canada. The summit takes place in Armenia this weekend, and what Carney is doing there is not a courtesy call or a diplomatic photo opportunity. It is a strategic positioning move that reflects a fundamental shift in how Canada is being perceived by the European leaders, who created a forum specifically designed to handle the most serious strategic challenges facing their continent, and who have now decided that Canada belongs in the conversation. The European political community was built for a specific purpose. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, European leaders recognized that the existing institutional frameworks, the European Union, NATO, the G7 were not sufficient on their own to coordinate the breadth of economic, defense, and political responses the situation required. The EPC created a broader tent, bringing together EU member states alongside non-EU European countries, including Iceland, Britain, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Turkey nations that are geographically European and strategically connected to the continent's security situation, even if they are not EU members. The forum was designed to shore up Europe's collective capacity to respond to pressure from Russia on defense, from China on economic competition, and increasingly to navigate the uncertainty emanating from Washington. It was explicitly a European space. Canada is not European. Canada has never been European, and yet Canada has now been invited inside. The explanation for that invitation requires understanding what Europe is looking for at this particular moment. The global order is shifting in ways that are forcing European governments to rethink assumptions that have been stable for decades. The United States, which anchored the Western alliance and provided the predictability around which European strategic planning was organized, has moved under the current administration toward a more transactional and inconsistent approach. Tariffs have been applied to European allies, agreements have been revisited, security commitments have been questioned. The unpredictability this creates is not just a diplomatic irritant. It is a structural planning problem for governments that need to make decade-long investments in defense, energy infrastructure, and trade relationships. Countries that cannot rely on Washington to hold consistent positions are being forced to expand their networks of reliable partners. Canada, under Carney, is presenting itself as exactly that, a partner that operates with consistency, credibility, and long-term thinking rather than reactive volatility. Carney's office framed the Armenia trip in terms that make the strategic intent explicit. The visit is directly tied to Canada's effort to diversify its economic relationships, reduce reliance on the United States, and expand its presence in European markets. The specific objectives include defense cooperation with European firms building on a defense deal signed last year that enables Canada to work with European defense companies on contracts and access EU financing mechanisms. It includes expansion of trade and investment partnerships across the continent. And it includes progress toward Canada's stated goal of doubling non-US exports by 2030. That last objective is not aspirational rhetoric. Canada's merchandise exports to non-US countries were up 17% year over year through January 2026. Energy exports to countries other than the United States rose 22.3% to $28.8 billion in 2025. The diversification is not a plan being developed. It is a trajectory already underway. The commentary surrounding the invitation reflects a genuine appreciation on the Canadian side of what it represents. One analyst described the invitation as a reflection of how America is rewriting the rules and how the rest of the world is struggling to figure out how to accommodate this, noting that the world is looking to the speech Carney gave at Davos earlier this year as an indication of how that accommodation might be approached. Carney's Davos remarks articulated a vision of a world in which the era of assuming economic integration is automatically beneficial and politically neutral is ending, in which trade diversification is not just an economic objective, but a tool of national sovereignty. European leaders operating in an environment where their own strategic autonomy has become a central policy preoccupation found that framing directly relevant. It identified a shared problem and a shared strategic direction. What distinguishes Carney's approach from the passive multilateralism that has historically characterized Canadian foreign policy is the deliberateness of the positioning. He is not waiting to be included in consequential conversations. He is making Canada indispensable to them. The pattern across the past year is consistent. The Canada Investment Summit targeting $1 trillion in new investment over 5 years. The 20 new trade and economic agreements signed across 4 continents. The NATO Defense, Security and Resilience Bank headquartered in Montreal. The Saab Bombardier GlobalEye winning the NATO AWACS contract. The Frontier Lithium Panasonic Critical Minerals Partnership, the Shell $22 billion Montney acquisition. Each of these is a discrete achievement. Together, they describe a country systematically building the infrastructure of a more independent and more globally integrated strategic position. The foreign policy philosophy underlying this activity is itself undergoing a documented shift. Canada's approach under Carney appears to be moving away from a primarily values-driven diplomatic model, in which Canada projected democratic values, advocated for multilateral institutions, and positioned itself as a principal broker toward a more pragmatic, interest-driven approach focused on securing tangible economic and strategic outcomes. This shift is not without critics. There are Canadians who argue that the values-based approach was not merely idealistic, but instrumentally effective, that Canada's credibility as a principled actor gave it influence that a purely transactional approach gradually erode. But the current global environment has made the purely idealistic version of that model increasingly difficult to sustain. In a world where China operates as a structural competitor, regardless of how values are projected toward it, where India requires concrete economic incentives to deepen bilateral relationships, and where the United States is operating transactionally regardless of how it is engaged, prioritizing resilience and tangible outcomes over rhetorical commitment to international norms is the approach that most countries are actually taking. Canada is aligning itself with that reality rather than pretending it does not exist. The Armenia summit will not transform overnight what took decades to build. Canada's relationship with European institutions, European defense industries, and European financial systems is deepening, but not yet deep. The $1 trillion investment target is a 10-year ambition, not a current achievement. Doubling non-US exports by 2030 requires sustained execution across multiple sectors and multiple trading relationships simultaneously. The invitation to the European Political Community Summit is a recognition of trajectory and intent, a signal that European leaders see Canada as a country worth including in strategic conversations because of where it appears to be heading, not only because of where it currently stands, but that is precisely how influence accumulates in modern geopolitics. You do not wait until you have achieved the outcome to be invited into the room where the outcome is negotiated. You get into the room by demonstrating that your trajectory makes you relevant to the conversation. Canada's trajectory over the past year, the deals signed, the institutions joined, the infrastructure built, the positions staked has made it relevant to a conversation that European leaders created specifically to manage their most serious strategic challenges without having to wait for Washington to provide direction. The United States has been a consistent anchor of the Western alliance for 8 decades. That consistency is what made European strategic planning predictable and investment in European-American integration rational. The current administration is not providing that consistency. Europe is adapting by expanding its network of reliable partners. Canada, under Mark Carney, has made itself the most obvious non-European candidate to be part of that expanded network. The Armenia invitation is Europe confirming that assessment. Influence evolves through reliability, not declarations. Canada showed up. Europe opened the door.